All right, the Reds, it's the second look show. We're taking a second look at Liverpool's win over Leicester City. We've had time to digest it now. We've had time to think about it. We've had time to watch it again. And so it can be put into context now, boys. We've got Ian Ryan and Paul Cope with me today. I'm Gareth Roberts. You probably know me by now because I'm a gobshite. But we've had time to put it into context. And what I mean by that, first and foremost, is that you watch Spurs get roughed up at Watford, lose the match. And I don't know about anyone else, but I watched that and thought, that's something Liverpool have done loads in the past. And whereas at Leicester, we didn't play the best, it's not the best performance, all that sort of thing, and yet we're out of there and we've won, and it's 4 out of 4 on the top of the league.
You can't argue with it, especially when you put it like that. And I think you're right to reference the Spurs performance against Watford, because that was one where you thought they'll probably go there and win. But actually, they had a really, really ropey last 25, where Watford made it physical, they made it awkward, and Spurs couldn't live with it. And I think, you know, to win a title, you've got to be prepared for loads of different challenges. And I think one of the things I was saying to Kopi after a match on Saturday when we got back from Leicester was, everyone thinks because Man City got 100 points last year, they were swashbuckling all the time, they were winning games, dead easy, it was kind of free-flowing football all the time. It isn't. It just isn't like that. A football season isn't made up like that. So I think to be able to go to places like Leicester, Palace, and demonstrate different attributes to your game, other than just blow teams away 3 or 4-0, is something to be really pleased with, proud of. Yeah. And if you look at that City documentary, and loads of people have seen it by now, you see early on in the season, they struggle against teams like Bournemouth, Huddersfield, Southampton. They're relying on little last-minute winners, people like Sterling popping up, putting one on the top bin. So that all goes on during the season, so you can't be perfect all the time, but you've got to be pleased if you're not perfect, that you're still picking up 3 points. You've still got players in your team who are capable of winning games, and actually, when you've got to dig it out, there's players there as well who can do that. They can do the ugly side of the game. And I think at the minute, what's pleasing me is the balance of the squad, the balance of the team. It's not just free-flowing. It can be at times. There's 5-10 minute spells where you're really pleased, or in the case of West Ham, there was 90 minutes where you can look back and go, well, that was great. But then throughout the 3 games, there's just been little bits where you think, well, that bit was good. There was a good 15 there, a good 20 there. So I think the Leicester game was one where you've got to take it on the chin. We weren't great, we weren't perfect. But Robbo, in a month's time, or even 2 weeks' time, when you line up against Spurs, no one's thinking about that. All people are saying, oh, you went to Leicester and you won 2-1.
Exactly. Kopi, anything to add to that for opening thoughts?
No, I couldn't agree more with Ian, to be honest. I've said the past 2 weeks, and this probably makes me sound like an old fella talking about the match now, but it's come to a point where I enjoy these wins more than the 5, 6, 7-0s, because it's crazy that we support a team that last season was more likely to win 7-0 than 1-0. and the reality is what Ian's saying, you don't win leagues by winning 7-0. That just in the history of football, you win leagues by winning those games when you're under the cosh, and those points all add up. And the reality is no one ever looks back at that stuff, do they? No. When your name is on the trophy and that's it. No one says, yeah, but remember that doesn't matter. You get the points, you leave. And I mean, we're going to talk about the control and stuff, but that's the important thing for me, is that we've turned into a team. I mentioned last time I was talking to you on one of these shows that we're almost behind the team now, because we're the ones, or fans generally, who are panicking about stuff. But when you look at the team, it doesn't look like it's panicking anymore. Like with 10, 15 minutes left in a match where they've only got a 1-goal lead, they look more like they're making the decisions of, well, we're all right to win by 1 goal. Which is, it sounds like a mad thing to say that, but I think we've had a mindset for a long time now as a club, as a fan base, where we don't think it's all right to win by 1 goal. And if you're not 3-0 up with 5 minutes left, it's, that has come through throwing away leads in the past years, and that's how we've been trained into that way of thinking. And I think we're sort of going the other way now, which is really good for everyone.
One of the reasons for a calmness around Liverpool at the weekend was Joe Gomez. Obviously, he's had lots and lots of praise. He's going to get some more here. He outshined his more senior partner, Virgil van Dijk, at centre-half. Just run through some stats for him. So 3 duels, 100% success rate. 3 interceptions, most out of any Liverpool player at the weekend. 5 clearances, second to Van Dijk. 1 aerial duel, which he won. No fouls conceded again, which happened in the other game as well, the other week. 76 touches, 58 passes, 82% pass accuracy. As I say, he rightly getting loads of plaudits over the weekend.
Yeah.
But it was a great performance. I mean, when you watch it again, the block that he puts in when he's covering for Van Dijk gets better and better. But even the grey shot through his legs, which Alisson saves. But then he's alert enough to be putting the rebound out. He gets his leg to that first. And but not only that as well, his passing going forward, everything about him just exuded this calmness, like I say, didn't it?
His performance was outstanding, and to go and outshine someone like Virgil van Dijk, who we've waxed lyrical about, all of us have, an absolute superstar of a centre-half, and Joe Gomez, to turn in a performance like that, Robbo, I mean, I think most fans who were there watching at home, you're not sure he's got that in his locker just yet. He's been impressive. Don't get me wrong, the first 3 games, I mean, Liverpool hardly conceding a chance, let alone a goal. So the partnership's working, and you're thinking, well, Van Dijk's probably getting him through a lot of this. He's talking to, the experienced centre-half would always do that with a more junior centre-half. But then to go and hit those heights, I thought his performance was absolutely outstanding. It's everything you want from a centre-half, everything you want from a pairing, really. I think Van Dijk is maybe a dodgy 10 or 15 when he starts getting a little bit sloppy, but there's none of that from Joe Gomez's performance. And the 2 situations you mentioned there were great because he's on the cover there about time. He smells danger. So many centre-halves, for me, in today's modern game, they don't smell danger, they don't sniff it out. But that one where he makes that block, the Maddison chance, that's unbelievable. That's absolutely sensational defending, because to get round the back there, I'm watching it from the other end, I'm next to Ben Jono, and I'm thinking, it's a certain goal. It's got goal written all over it. So for him to go and do that, I mean, that's kind of, point-saving stuff from a centre-half. So I think you can only say, there was talk about whether we needed another centre-half before the season started, and I have to say, I'll hold my hands up, I was in that camp. I'm thinking, not from a quality perspective, more from a reliability point of view. You're thinking, well, the centre-halves who are there, there's a chance to let you down through illness, injury, they pick up knocks, etc. And maybe there's a question mark over Joe Gomez, because you've seen him perform at right back well at times, but you've seen mistakes in his game as well, where he's been caught under the ball a couple of times. You think of City at home, where Sane does, and you think the Arsenal game away. There's times there you think, it's just things that happen to young centre-halves. There's nothing you can do about it. People like John Stones, Rio Ferdinand, it happens to them, the ones who are considered to be the best centre-halves in the league. But with experience, you start to iron those little issues out, and it's only been a matter of months, but already you can see that his game looks to have come on so much. And I think you've got to say, well, credit to him for that. And I also do think, playing next to someone like Van Dijk, 9 times out of 10, that's going to help you in any football match, because he's a talker. He's a leader, isn't he? You can see that he's guiding the back 4 through games. But there's no doubt Joe Gomez's performance there was absolutely outstanding on Saturday.
Cope, he wanted to just get you on something else that I spotted over the weekend, which is that Klopp, in one of his post-match interviews, I think it was at LFC TV, obviously they're slightly different when he's doing different ones. He says roughly the same thing, but he said there's just a word he used again for the LFC TV one, which was control. And I found it really interesting, because I've seen a lot of people talking about the performance, saying it was below par, saying maybe Liverpool got a little bit lucky, and then you had the manager there saying defensively we were in control. And when you look at sort of the game so far, West Ham, we had 65% of the ball. Crystal Palace, we had 64%. Brighton, we had 70%. At Leicester, we only have 49% possession. So it almost sounds counterintuitive that he's talking about control. But if you dig a little bit deeper into the stats, the Reds had more shots from inside the box, 7 to Leicester's 3. Leicester don't really create too many clear-cut chances as such across the game. I think the expected goal is less than 1 for Leicester. It's not much more for us, by the way, although Neil has made me add on this bit that, the one where Milner and Salah don't end up on the same wavelength, that should be a goal, but it's not showing up on no expected goals thing. So that's going in there. But Andrew Beasley in his column in the Echo today, which is worth a read as ever, he's saying that, sort of 33 minutes between Leicester's goal and full time, Leicester have 1 shot in that time, and not only that, it was taken from outside the penalty box, and it was blocked close to source. So this then got me interested in, well, how many chances are people getting in general against the Reds then? And they've averaged 7.8 shots against across the first 4 games, a figure that's bettered only by Man City with 7. So with all that, and that was a bit of a mouthful, apologies, but the control idea, like there's something about the way Liverpool are playing this season that's it's a little bit different, but at the same time I think Ian's touched on it as well. You can almost see the calmness at the back, like they're all right with it. Even the keeper's all right with his mistake as well.
Yeah, I think it ties back into what I was saying before about winning games 1-0, 2-1. This all feels to a lot of people, I think, more of a Mourinho, Benitez type style of football, where I know Mourinho's talked about it over the years because he'd talk about controlling a game and people were like, you've had like 40% possession. And he would always say, you don't need the ball to control the game. He would control the ball by controlling the space and controlling what the other team can and can't do when they've got the ball, because he doesn't care if the other team have got the ball, if they can't do anything dangerous with it. And I think what happens to the likes of Klopp and Guardiola is they get put in a completely different box. So people will say, well, that's what Mourinho and Benitez are like, and they're defensive managers, and Conte. And Guardiola and Klopp are all about this dynamic football and keeping hold of the ball and keeping possession. But it's underestimated how good their teams are defensively. Yeah. But they defend in a different way. I've talked about this in the past on review shows in previous seasons, that football teams, like any organisation, it's an evolution over a period of time. And most of there are exceptions to this, like Chelsea, but most successful teams and clubs develop over a period. They get stable and then they develop slowly, and you can always see it. You can always go back and plot. And I think that's the stage we're getting to now, where we're getting to a point where we're comfortable without the ball, we're comfortable controlling space. You can almost, someone did a diagram of average positions over the first 3 games. I don't know if you saw that, and
yeah.
it was practically everybody in the same position for the first 3 games. So it's a sign of how well drilled they are now. And bear in mind, most of these players have played for Klopp now for 2 or 3 seasons. So they know exactly what they're doing. They know where they need to be. The Gomez stuff just filters all into this. I expected the midfield to be the midfield it was on Saturday, because we saw this a bit last season as well. When he wants to be more solid and he wants to be more controlled, he will sacrifice a little bit of that sort of flamboyance in the middle of the pitch. So I was actually thinking coming into this, we need to be maybe cast more of a critical eye on things and ways we can get better. But I'm actually struggling not to be really optimistic now, even with the bits that you might think are negative, or might like 49% possession away from home. On the face of it, you could say, oh, that's not as good. But there's positives to take from it because of this other side of it, which I think is fantastic.
Well, I'm just going to stop you there, because it's a perfect way to segue into what Neil's going to be talking about now with this tactics board, which is, while Leicester might have had more possession, what did they actually do with it, and why were they maybe a little bit wary of Liverpool?
Leicester will feel as though they had control of the game. In reality, they had control of the area from the halfway line until around Liverpool's final third. And they did this by having so many footballers around to block Liverpool, to stop them from playing out. Think about that period in the first half where Leicester were on top. Yeah, they were on top. They were able to force Liverpool back. They were able to pen Liverpool in. But what they weren't able to do was fashion opportunities. And the reason why was they didn't take gambles. They didn't force the wide men out to make the pitch big. They didn't do that. They didn't send the fullbacks overloading on either side to see if they could get around the back of Liverpool. Instead, they dominated this strip of the pitch here effectively and made it so that Liverpool really struggled to get the game going again, really struggled to play out, but they never really genuinely hurt Liverpool. Gray was a willing runner, but he wasn't Jamie Vardy, and he wasn't able to genuinely threaten either Liverpool central defender. Maddison played really well, really bright, really impressive, but what that meant was when he got the ball, he often didn't have a ton of options. The only way he was going to be able to do anything really to hurt Liverpool, you felt, was to run past 2 in a very much Kaka 2005 sort of way and stick it in the back of the net. There wasn't much happening in Liverpool's penalty area, and that may well be why the manager feels as though he can say Liverpool controlled the game. It was the same in the second half of both 2-0 and 2-1. Leicester couldn't quite take the chances that freed them up to be able to genuinely pen Liverpool back into the final third. Instead, the business all happened around here. Liverpool, on the other hand, struggled to get the midfield shape right the way through the game. And we keep talking about this shape as though it's this finely sort of balanced thing that when it works, the Reds look great. But if it doesn't, then the Reds can look not quite right. And I don't think any of the midfield 3 of Wijnaldum, Henderson or Milner found it easy at the weekend against Leicester, partially because of Leicester's setup, granted, but also because of what Liverpool do. Liverpool don't play a traditional 4-3-3 where the wide players are basically this and the centre forwards there. We get to see all the time from the average position that actually Salah is the furthest forward, and he's actually really quite central. So what that means is this huge expansive pitch here where, for instance, Liverpool can be got at and Liverpool have got to shuffle along. So Jurgen Klopp's asking his midfield three to be the power of four on the one hand, but also to pay extra attention. We don't want Mo Salah tracking back. We want him saving his energy and being the player that he can be in attack. Even Mane, he comes back and he works hard and he comes and gets involved in midfield, but we want him to be an attacking midfielder. We want him to take the risk and cheat, and that means these three all game have got to move. If someone's not quite on it, if someone's not quite right, whether in the front three or this three, if the shape isn't quite working, the full-backs aren't quite where we want them to be, all of this just knocks Liverpool's attacking play off. All of it knocks the rhythm off, and it makes it even harder again for these three in the middle. For me, it's fascinating we haven't seen Firmino yet, that he's had to go away and work, even though he's played in a Champions League semi-final for Monaco, on what he does in centre midfield to be part of this Liverpool setup. That should tell us how tricky it is to be one of these three. And I think that's something that we're going to have to take through the whole of this season. This has got to get better than it was on Saturday. There was one amongst them who feel he had his 8, 7 even out of 10 game. But they have a lot to do. They end up with lots of questions to answer. And when a side absolutely compact this area, and when Liverpool themselves don't want to be part of that, it's only going to make it harder for them. It'll all click, it'll all come together, and after all, we have got 12 out of 12.
Great stuff from Neil Atkinson as ever. He mentions Firmino there, boys, and I just, there's a stat I noticed over the weekend about under Jurgen Klopp, Firmino has been directly involved in 60 Premier League goals, so 37 goals, 23 assists, and that's 15 more than any other Liverpool player in that time. Clearly a Jurgen Klopp favourite, as Opta put on the end of that tweet. And yeah, against Leicester, it's not his best afternoon, and yet oddly he scored, he gets himself off the mark. So he has 2 shots, 2 on target, 1 goal, 78% of his passes found the target. He created a chance. Take-ons, only 2 out of 6 was successful. He was dispossessed 5 times. He does put 5 tackles in, does make 5 fouls as well. And early on he's in, isn't he? And it's a lovely take. He gets that shot off, and Salah should score. But at the same time, it was a little bit of a frustrating afternoon, and it's starting to turn into a bit of a thing that he hasn't played that well. And yet, I seen some analysis the other day that's showing that he was always deep. There's analysis that's saying he's even deeper now, and so therefore are we sort of looking for the right things from him almost?
I think you can analyse Firmino's performance, with the ball and without the ball. So with the ball, he's not great. I think that's fairly obvious. It's bouncing off him a little bit. The things he's trying aren't quite coming off. Obviously, he gets his header, which is a good header, by the way. He escapes Madison at the corner and bullets it in. Doesn't really give the keeper any chance. But the reason I think he stays on is for what he's given you off the ball. So I think there was calls, and it certainly crossed my mind about whether maybe he's going to be one of the substitutions that Klopp looks to maybe take off. Bring him off and put someone else on. Maybe leave someone like Salah on. But I think the manager gets accused quite a lot, certainly by parts of the media, of being, this flamboyant, this kind of manager who wants to go out and kind of just batter teams with free-flowing football. But I think what we are seeing now is a more pragmatic approach from Klopp at times. So one of the things that's kind of struck me, not just on the Firmino thing, but certainly when you're thinking about defending, you're thinking about the defence, you've got those 2 centre-halves who obviously back themselves in any situation, really, certainly one-on-ones. But quite often when Liverpool have got the ball as well, 2 out of those 3 midfielders are normally always kind of screening, if you like. So 6 are going forward. There's 2 midfielders covering those 2 centre-halves, and it's really difficult to counter-attack on Liverpool now because of that. So we've always got numbers back, and I think one of the things Bobby does, he feeds into some of that. So all of a sudden you see that last-minute almost break where Maguire's looking to feed the ball into midfield and break from there. But Firmino he's still aware, he's still tracking, his first thing is, I'll go and close him down. And there's not many centre forwards in the game whose first thought is that, especially in the 90th minute, he's shattered. We can talk about the lack of quality at times when he's got the football, but you can never really accuse him of not doing his job without the ball. And I think that's one of the reasons why the manager thinks, well, I'm leaving him on because I know what he'll give me defensively. And there's very, very few forwards in the game who offer the same kind of protection, if you like. And I think that's something I've noticed over Klopp's tenure, if you like, that he is becoming more, not aware of the opposition, because he's an elite football manager. He's always going to be aware. But I think it's harder to pick holes now in some of the things that Liverpool are doing. Certainly defensively, I think you could look at other games, other seasons where it has been at times too easy to spring onto Liverpool's back four. But those things I've mentioned there in terms of always having maybe two out the three midfielders looking to protect. But there's no doubt about it, when you've got lads like Bobby Firmino and Mane who are willing to work back and do some of the dogged stuff as well. And I think the midfield was a bit of a, Kobe touched on it before. I can see why he went with that midfield, but I don't think it particularly worked well.
No, it wasn't the greatest.
There was issues.
We look better with Naby.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're going to pick a standout from that three, I thought Milner at times did some good bits. He's very clever. He goes down at times pretending to be injured. He buys you a couple of minutes, vital seconds. And actually for the first goal, there was times in the first 20 minutes I thought his positioning was really interesting because he's dropping in almost like another centre-half, but he's taking the ball off one of the two centre-halves and then he's punching it into midfield, but he's dragging one of their lads out. One of their lads is going to him, allowing him to put stuff into the middle of the park. And the first goal comes from him doing that, feeding Mo Salah, who then feeds Robbo, and the goal comes from there. So I think there's loads of flexibility to Liverpool teams. You could literally spend hours talking about all the different kind of parts of the side, but there's no doubt, I think...
And we do.
Yeah, we absolutely do. But there's no doubt, I think, from a forward point of view, and I think you can include Mo Salah in when you talk about maybe Bobby not hitting the heights of his normal performance. Salah, whilst he's contributed goals, it wasn't his best day at the office, wasn't it? I think he struggled at times to get involved and stuff, but it all just feeds back in. Sometimes, players aren't going to play well, but collectively, if you can still stay in the game and be strong and be hard to beat and difficult to get in behind, then you've always got a chance of winning the football match, and Liverpool did that.
Kopi, I know you like a little bit of sort of myth busting and sort of challenging people's beliefs and stuff like that. So I'm going to finish with this one for you. This was something I spotted on some of the TV analysis at the weekend, which suggested that Liverpool start fast, but then they maybe fade. And I thought, well, is that true? Is that a thing? And there was also, there was a stat kicking around that basically Liverpool have not lost a Premier League game in which they've scored first for 28 games. So that's 22 wins, 6 draws and no losses. So that challenges the idea that we throw away leads, which some people seem to be still trotting out. But also, do you think it's actually a plan to sort of hit them hard early, get that goal, and then just go, okay, come on then, and we'll sit on it a little bit?
Yeah, I think it has to be, doesn't it? And it's the same for teams like Guardiola's and Klopp's. The longer the opposition goes without conceding, the more belief they get, and it all factors in, all these small details factoring in together. So clearly, you want to start quickly, you want to get an early goal and get your nose head, especially with that stat, which we've said. Like, I love that. The number of times people have said to me in the last season, we always throw away leads, and that's why they panic when we're only winning by one. That goes back to what we talked about before, going full circle. That's why people panic, because they've got this belief in their mind that we do throw away leads, and it's stuff like that that's important, because it's not true. And the number of times if you challenge these assumptions and think, well, why do I think that? It's from 3 years ago or 4 years ago or 5 years ago, and it's just stuck in your mind. As soon as you go, well, we don't actually. What we are now is a team that can win 1-0. And only needs a 1-goal lead at any point in the match, and they can see it out. And we saw that in the game, didn't we, with players coming on and being more practical than you might think, and saying, no, we don't need to score another goal. Whereas, think about yourself watching the match, think about being in the ground. The number of times it's like attack. Yeah. Even I was annoyed with Gomez at the end for doing long throws into the box. Like, you don't need to do that. And it was interesting that it was more attack-minded players who were the ones saying, no, it's fine. We can just keep it here because we've only got 5 minutes left.
Just keeps it in the corner.
Brilliant at it. So yeah, like I agree on the myth busting thing. It's fantastic.
There's something else on that. We haven't really got into the whole stuff around the goalkeeping and stuff, have we, today, in terms of the kind of back pass now. But we know what's happened. It's been talked about to death. But Andy Robbo gives an interview today, I think to David Lynch, and Kopi speaks before about, if teams start to panic. Well, one of the things Robbo talks about in that piece is, they managed to keep a high line for a number of set pieces towards the end. Conscious about Harry Maguire, who gets on the end of most things, you will do with a head the size of his, to be fair. But you're normally thinking, when you start to panic, the first thing that happens is you drop back. Your line just completely drops at a set piece, and you end up being almost on top of the keeper. That doesn't happen because Liverpool aren't panicking. They're calm, they're composed, and they keep that high line, and it makes it really difficult for Leicester. And in the end, they get caught offside. So it just goes to show what we're sometimes feeling in the stands and watching it at home. At this moment in time, the players aren't really feeling that, and that kind of, it's backed up by the fact that Leicester don't get a sniff You know, I'm thinking in the stand, this could go 2-2 here. But when you look back at the game and the stats, there's no sign of it ever really going to 2-2. The keeper isn't panicking after the mistake he makes. He just goes and plays his normal game, and you know we can tell he's a confident boy, isn't he? It doesn't affect him at all. But the back four, they're not affected by it either, by the looks of it, because no one gets a sniff, and the Reds just end up seeing out a decent, a really good 2-1 win at a really difficult place to go.
Is right, and the Reds are top of the league, so that has been the second look. Hope you enjoyed it. Comment away below as usual, tell your mates, press subscribe, press that little bell thing so you get the notifications. Up the Reds.